So you guys like Masters of the Universe? Well, I've got a pretty great video for you today. Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and I think this is going to be a pretty fun video to do. So this is sort of like a haul video, but I decided to approach this a little bit differently than I normally do. Instead of just sitting at a table and like opening a box and kind of doing it all in one take, I thought it'd be really cool to actually sort through everything and really get some great shots and some good information on some of the highlights of this collection that I just picked up. So recently I was reached out to by a viewer by the name of Matt, and Matt had a pretty amazing offer for me. You see, he had been keeping his Masters of the Universe collection in storage for quite some time, and he came to the realization that it was just gonna sit there and he was never gonna get it back out again. So he reached out to me knowing I'm a fan, and long story short, I ended up acquiring his entire collection. So this collection is pretty amazing because it is mostly filled with what I believe are his childhood Masters of the Universe toys. There are a ton of figures, lots of accessories from the original 1980s toy line, but there's a lot of other fun stuff in there as well, and we're gonna sort through it and I'm gonna show it off in today's video. Now, when you are sorting through a collection like this, I want to tell you about a couple of books that will help make that process easier. First, you've got to pick up the toys of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And of course, I'm going to recommend that book because that's my book. But hey, this book really digs in and shows you lots of photography of all of the figures, shows all of the accessories that each figure comes with. Could really be a big help if you're trying to piece together vintage action figures and you don't quite remember what accessories go to who. But in addition to that, I would also recommend picking up the Masters of the Universe Vintage Toys Reference Guide by Zach Papadelius. Now, this is a great companion piece to the toys of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe because this one specifically goes into variations. Every page shows one photo of the figure, but then has an amazing assortment of research that goes into the country of origins, all of the differences, and even the international releases. So if you're trying to piece together what exactly you have, both of these books are great reference tools, and both books are available for order from Amazon right now. All right, now that I've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at some of the notable figures that were in this collection. So we're gonna start right here because of course we are. There was a Mosquitor with his gun inside this collection. So of course, as one of my all-time favorite action figures, this is something that is very exciting for me. All in all, he looks like he's in pretty great shape, and hey, that blood-pumping action feature works beautifully. Now, Mosquitor himself has actually become a bit of an expensive figure to track down these days, but the thing that makes this one even more special is that he has that purple gun. Mosquitor is oftentimes missing that gun, so seeing that one was included in here made this even better. And hey, speaking of rare figures, or at least popular figures, we've also got Scareglow with his cape. Now, of course, Scareglow has always been popular. He has definitely jumped in popularity over the past decade or so. He was always one of my favorite figures as a kid. In fact, I liked him so much that he replaced Skeletor in my collection as a kid. And of course, this is a character that is often missing his cape when you find him in the wild, so getting the cape with this particular figure is a huge plus. Next up, we got this Ratlore, and do you know what makes this particular Ratlore special? Well, it's because this is the red neck version. The more common version of Ratlore has a yellow neck, and while this red one isn't ultra rare by any means, he's not super hard to come by, he is still the harder to find of the two versions, so it's pretty cool seeing this in here. We've got the Sorceress complete with her staff. This is another one of those late line figures that has become a bit more obscure to track down in recent years, and again, it's another one whose accessory is often missing. Ninjor was another favorite of mine as a kid. I just always really loved the tunic and how you can pull that down and see his real face underneath. So this one's in pretty good shape. The tunic has got a little bit of threads kind of coming loose in it, but looks pretty good otherwise. He's not complete, though he does come with his katana sword. He's missing the bow and arrow and the nunchuck, but still a really nice addition. We've got Snakeface in here. Now, this is a great one because I feel like Snakeface gets forgotten about a lot. He's one that I didn't even have as a kid. I got him later in life as a collector. He's another one of those that came towards the end of the line. Of course, part of the Snake Men. Really great figure, and this particular one is complete. Blade from the motion picture is another one that I really liked as a kid, but that's because I really liked the movie. So of course, any figures that came from the movie were cool to me. This one is really nice. He has one of his swords, which is still a plus because his swords are also missing quite often. But one of the other things I want to point out with this guy is the fact that his name was written on him, and I just think that is so cool. In fact, we are now going to take an aside real quick because there are several figures in this collection where the name was written on them. You can see that with Leech, you can see it written on his foot, you can see it written on Faker. Buzz-Off has his name written on his wing, and Clamp Champ has even got his name written on there. I also love how Squeeze has Tangler written on him. Not even the correct name, but I love that. I think that is so cool. I don't know, this is one of those things where I think a lot of collectors looking to fill gaps in their collection, this is not something they would really want to see, right? They want something that's in pristine shape, looks as good as possible. But I don't know, this is charming to me. I love that these were loved so much as a kid, that the names were written on them. So I think that really makes these something special. By the way, let's talk about that Clamp Champ a little bit more. First of all, his clamp accessory is included and it functions, so that's great because this is another hard to find accessory. But I want to point out something else with this Clamp Champ. Do you see all those weird spots scattered around his legs? That is the plastic breaking down, and it's actually common for figures that are produced in Malaysia. So you can see he does have the Malaysia stamp on his back. This is known as a virus Clamp Champ. That's what the community has dubbed this particular plastic breakdown that you see on the figures. It's pretty common with the Malaysia version of He-Man. You'll sometimes hear him called Virus He-Man, so that's exactly what's going on with this Clamp Champ here. So how about the most powerful man in the universe? Did we get any of those? Well, of course we did. We got a complete Thunder Punch He-Man in there. Well, complete meaning that he's got his shield and his sword. There are no caps included, but still really nice to get those two accessories. And we also got a really nice, complete Flying Fist He-Man, which was one of my favorite variations as a kid, because you gotta love that vac metal. And he must have been a big fan of Battle Armor He-Man because there are 4 of those in here. And they're not complete, and one of them is in pretty rough shape, missing an arm and all the paint on his head, but I think this is still really interesting to look at because among these, we've got some really interesting variations here. First of all, the Mexico versions come with either a soft head or a hard head, and I've got both of those there. You'll also notice those both have a yellow belt, whereas the Taiwan version I have on the far right has a more orangish colored belt. So really interesting to kind of see these 3 variations of the exact same figure lined up side by side. And we also have 2 of the standard He-Man action figure. And while neither of these are complete, we do have 2 distinct variations. Now, both of these were produced in Taiwan, but you'll notice that one of them has a much more lighter orange belt. And if you look closely, he has a distinct belly button indent. That is thought to be the original 8-back version of He-Man. Whereas the other Taiwan version has a more reddish colored belt, almost like a salmon colored belt, and the belly button is not as pronounced, so that is likely a later reissue. So again, really interesting looking 2 of the exact same figure side by side and just seeing how they differ based on their production. And of course, we have a few of old Bonehead in here as well. We've got the standard Skeletor, though this is not the 8-back version because he doesn't have the pink on the cheeks, also missing his armor and his sword. We've got Battle Armor Skeletor. We've got Terror Claws Skeletor, though he's missing one of his claws and his Bone Dragon. And that final one is Dragon Blaster Skeletor, though the dragon armor is not included. Now, there are so many accessories in here, and I was able to sort through these and pair a lot of these up with several of the figures that we pulled out of there, and was even able to complete some of them. But there's a ton of accessories that don't even really match up with any of the figures within this box, and there's some really good stuff in here. We've got a pair of blasters that go to Skeletor's Land Shark vehicle. We've got the little missile that goes to the battle ram. I love this thing. Always loved the sculpt on this little thing. This is a really good one. This is the accessory that goes to the Tyrantosaurus Rex. So this would go in his belly. You would actually wind it up and then the belly opens up and it goes rolling out. That's already kind of an obscure figure, so finding his accessory is definitely a plus. This is another good pair of accessories. These discs go to the Blaster Hawk vehicle. So there's probably a lot more stuff aside from that you can see in this pile, but I'll definitely be hanging on to all of this in a parts bin because this is always good for matching things up as I'm finding more figures later down the road. We also have a really nice batch of Meteorbs in here, and these are figures that I never had as a kid. They are definitely the oddballs out. I know a lot of people look at these as not really part of the collection because they feel so different, and that's because they are different. They were tacked on, they come from a Bandai toy line in Japan, but I still love them. I actually did a whole video about them. If you guys haven't seen that, you should check that out, but always happy to add some Meteorbs to the collection. So if vintage isn't your flavor, I also have a set of New Adventures figures in here. So some really good stuff. We've got He-Man and Skeletor and Flipshot and Optic, which is a great one. Hydron's in here and Flog. Some of these actually are complete, have all their accessories, but not He-Man there, because as you may notice, those are not the accessories that typically come with him. This is how he was in the box, and I kind of love this. That's totally a Chuck Norris Karate Commando shield that he's holding. It's pretty amazing. So there's a lot of great action figures in there, a ton of great accessories for those figures, but figures aren't the only thing that were included with this collection. And if you know me, then you know one of my favorite things to collect, one of the most exciting things for me to find for Masters of the Universe are all of the merchandising pieces. And the 80s had so much random merchandising that it's just so fun to discover what's out there. This collection has a ton of amazing non-action figure Masters of the Universe pieces that had me totally thrilled. So while the majority of all of this stuff is vintage, there's actually some things in here from the 2000X series or the 2003 series, including all of these figures from the McDonald's Happy Meal promotion. This was such a great Happy Meal promotion because these are just small action figures, and we've got some loose ones and a few bagged ones in here as well. And how about this amazing beach towel? How cool is that? You know, I remember seeing some of this merchandise in the stores during that era, but at the time I was only buying the figures. And I kind of regret not buying some of this weird merchandise like this towel here, so I am so glad to add this to my collection. But now let's jump back to vintage because there is some really cool stuff in here. So let's start with this set of Masters of the Universe figure erasers. Now these are pretty common. You've probably seen these before. I actually still run into these very often at toy shows, but I still love them. It's always great to get a batch of these. But these are a little bit more obscure, and I was so thrilled when I found these in here. These are bootleg Gumball Machine figures. So these were actually found in vending machines, probably back in the 80s, maybe even into the early 90s. They are not officially licensed, but they are amazing. They're very rubbery, but you can see that they're based off of the actual figures from the 5.5-inch toy line, so that makes it really unique. And there is a really great assortment of little characters in here. I love these, and I was so thrilled when I found this little baggie in this collection. We also have this great set of glasses. I actually didn't have any of this vintage glassware, so these are very cool. We've got a couple of the Kid Stuff cassette tapes, which are great. I used to love listening to these as a kid. But even more exciting is this button for the Masters of the Universe motion picture. Holy cow! I don't have any of this kind of merchandise for the He-Man movie, so this is really awesome. We've got a great batch of puzzles. We've got some that are boxed, and I love the artwork on these. They're just absolutely gorgeous. And then we've also got some of the larger tray puzzles, which are also very cool. The colors on these are beautiful. So again, very cool artwork here. We've got this really great bank. It's like a bust of He-Man. You can tell that it was modeled after the He-Man action figure, just the way it's detailed. It's flat on the back. It's got the little cap on the bottom to hold the money in, so this is a really nice piece. And then we get to some really cool, rare stuff for decorating your bathroom. First of all, one of my favorite pieces in here is this land shark floating soap dish. That is right. This is meant to be in the bathtub. It came with 3 little bars of soap that would sit in the back of that little land shark there. It's so cool. I mean, look at this thing. Look at that squat little Skeletor sitting on there. He's adorable. And then we've got this soap dispenser. And yeah, I had to look this up because I couldn't tell what this was. But this He-Man holding this giant shield is a soap dispenser. You would fill the shield with soap. You'd push that little button on the top. It would dispense the soap into your hand. It is amazing. It is a wonderful sculpt, by the way. Very cool looking piece. But I also looked this up and I found a boxed version online, and it's part of a whole set. Look at that shower head. I need to find that shower head, guys. And then probably the coolest piece in this entire collection, something that I have always wanted, is the vintage Masters of the Universe role-playing game. That is right. This is a tabletop RPG. This is from the 80s. I know a lot of people don't even realize that this is a thing that existed. It is wonderful. So amazing artwork on the box, but when you open it up, it looks like everything is in there. The rule book is done in the style of a comic, so that is really amazing, flipping through all the pages and looking at this. You've got all of your character sheets in there for the different characters you can be. We've got a board that folds out that's got some awesome artwork on there. We got dice, we got character pieces. This is a truly amazing gem within this collection of really wonderful stuff all the way around. This is something that I'm gonna have to get some friends together and sit down and maybe try to figure out. I've never been much of a tabletop gamer, but man, for vintage Masters of the Universe, I definitely think I want to try this at some point. Regardless, I'm so happy to add this to the collection among all this other really amazing stuff. So there you go. That is Matt's amazing Masters of the Universe collection. I know a lot of you are probably wondering, what are you going to do with all these? You are a big collector. You've got a lot of this stuff. And yes, that is true. But let me tell you, one of the things I've really been focusing on with my vintage Masters of the Universe collection is not only trying to make sure my collection is complete with all the accessories, but I am also really big into checking all of those little details, all those little variants, looking at the country of origin, and anything that I find that I don't already have in my collection finds a home right there. And I always keep a bin filled with parts and accessories so I can match that up with more figures down the road. So these are absolutely going to find a great home right here in my display. In addition to that, I didn't have most of those really great merchandising pieces, and I think those are probably some of the more exciting additions to my collection now. So one of the things Matt said to me when we were working this deal out is that he realized that he was probably never going to look at these toys again because they were just going to continue sitting in his storage unit, and he was hoping that by at least sending them to somebody else to enjoy, that maybe he will get this video out of it, and it would be a good way to document his collection. So Matt, I really hope that I did your amazing collection justice with this video, and I really hope all of you out there enjoyed this as well. I know this is a bit of a different way for me to present something like this, but I had a lot of fun doing the research and shooting everything for this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed this as well. And you know what? It's not just Masters of the Universe, because Matt also sent me a pretty amazing collection of vintage DC and Marvel Comics toys, but we are going to save that for another day. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I hope you saw something new today or learned something new today. If you did, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And as always, I want to give a big shout out to all of my supporters over on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you for the continued support, and thanks to all of you for continuing to watch these videos on this channel. Until next time, my friends.